Pecha Kucha 252, Ultimate Galactus, and Easy Sketching. So I'm continuing my reading my Ultimate Marvel stuff. And looking at Ultimate Galactus made me immediately decide I want to try drawing normal Galactus, which is a bizarre thing. So Ultimate Galactus is basically a crossover between all of the Ultimate franchises. So Ultimate X-Men, The Ultimates, Fantastic Four, etc. It's 3 books, and they each have a very different tone. The first book is like a horror book. It starts with like mass suicides and this really cynical kind of thing. The Ultimates and some of the X-Men go to this Russian military base full of deep, dark, fucked up secrets, including an evil Captain America. I suppose you'd call him Captain Russia. Has nothing to do with Galactus. It's like, something is coming and it's going to destroy the world, which is what Galactus does. So it's an excellent horror book, which is super surprising. The second book introduces the Fantastic Four and Captain Marvel. It reads as a typical action, light-hearted, humorous, normal, brightly coloured Marvel superhero book. Captain Marvel, I don't know if he ever got his own book. He's a fun character, mostly because he's like Spider-Man light, talks in pop culture meme jokes and stuff, except it's 2004, so it's not so hard and heavy. It's fun. I don't know I'd go looking for a Captain Marvel book per se. And then the third book, Galactus, giant space termites from space show up to threaten the world. It's a disaster movie with a little detective thing on the side that doesn't really fit in properly. Action-packed blockbuster. Good stuff. The Silver Surfer, the most famous herald of Galactus, is also present, but there's more than one, and he has more than one set of teeth in his mouth, like a shark. Why? Because somebody thought that was cool. Ultimately, the whole thing reads like an action movie. It's a lot of fun. There's no character development, but this is really the best you can hope from a Marvel book. I recommend this. And who is Galactus? Galactus is the World Eater, a being of immense power from a very early time in Marvel's history. He looks very silly, and I'm like, well, can I make him look less silly? And yeah, I could to a degree. I think that the best way to make him look cool is to kind of focus on his scale. He's about the size of a building, but he can change his size because he consumes planets. And I wanted to try and keep as much of his character design, but just not worry too much about anything specific while I kind of had him with, the Earth literally within his grasp. It was a fun experience drawing someone with this silly thing on his head and trying to make it seem like it's not silly. I think if the idea is he's a deity and he's just wearing this thing because he's beyond human conception, he's not a giant man. You just see him as a giant man because you can't behold him as he truly is. It's that Sandman thinking. It's fantastic. As I'm constantly re-rendering this image, trying to get a little bit closer to this idea I want to impart, and I'm trying to figure out the lighting. Unfortunately, Manga Studio, for maybe the third time in my entire life, crashed, and it crashed while saving, so I lost some of these versions I was working on. It's always a good thing when you have a setback, because then you can determine if you're going to push forward through it. So I kind of went back to basics, and I'm like, what am I trying to get across? I want the sense of scale. So at the very bottom of this image, the Fantastic Four have been kind of penciled into, and he's, Galactus is supposed to be walking out of his giant spaceship thing. But at this point, I didn't really want to commit. I just didn't want to walk away. And then I kind of settled on, well, what do I want? I want Galactus looking, very big and very impressive. And then I want him to clearly be next to Earth. And I was like, well, do the close-up. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like this works. I love coming in with the chalk brush and figuring out what I'm doing with a little bit of airbrush for the lighting. This is where I tapped out. I feel like I overcame the setback. I got what I was going for. I didn't have to worry too much about Galactus's character design. He has square irises, which I also think is cool. yeah. I also spent this week trying to figure out how to draw stuff without committing. I was just flicking through Ultimate Spider-Man that I spoke about last week. Just, trying to do sketches without committing to the anatomy. Can I just do like a few handful of sketches, pick up something without it feeling like it's work? I don't know that I did, and then I was like, well, let me just draw some stuff without reference. Let's just keep filling the canvas with little sketches, non-committal detail work. See if I can build a little bit of storytelling. I mean, there is no story except what you see and what you think it means. And I feel like, and then I just drew a picture of Legion from Mass Effect 2. Why? Because I just wanted to keep my hand moving and there was no main focus. I'm trying to develop this idea of, let's just draw. Let's not make it a big deal. Because I'd really like to do this as a social thing with other people. But if I can't sit down and just draw random things without it feeling like I have to achieve a certain level of success or I'm a failure, and I always need to do more handwork. But my cartoon hands aren't so bad that they're bad. Then how can I ask other people to sit down with me? It was harder than I thought to just faff around, to be honest. And then I just ended up drawing a sketch of Professor Xavier talking to Mr. 47 from the Hitman franchise, complaining how people mistake them for each other when they're clearly two very, very different people. Yeah, I really do need to do cartooning more. This is like a cartoon joke. This should go somewhere. I should tidy it up and do something with it. But yeah, I did some other stuff that I don't really want to talk about this week, which I think will be helpful going forward. But that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 252, and I'll see you next time.